Hello, everyone, and welcome to On the Hot Seat with Nick, your baby. And this is going to be a new series we have on the Take Sports podcast. Really kind of something different, allowing me to have guests on the show, get someone else's perspective, and some more insight on all professional sports and all the teams that I like covering, and all the sports stories that are going on. And so without further ado, I'd love to welcome Conor Moore on the hot seat. Conor and I graduated high school together. Since then, we've just kind of been just keeping tabs on each other through social media. And what have you been up to, man?
Nick, first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be on the hot seat here, and shout out to both yourself and Christian Cabrera for the behind-the-scenes work and the production you guys do. It's a class act. Pleasure to be here. Excited to talk some sports around the country and even the globe. I mean, this is, unprecedented times for sure with everything happening right now, but to shed some light and some positivity across the globe is definitely a focus. And before we get into it, I would love to shout out the Tampa Spartans of the Sunshine State Conference, the NCAA, all the professional sport leagues across the country and the globe for the job they're doing during the global pandemic and where we're at right now with everything, the surrounding effects. It's good to see, some startup everywhere responsibly and in hopes of resuming normality here in the near future. But with that being said, we'd love to dive right in, and thanks again for having me.
Dude, absolutely. And it's funny. Conor and I kind of when it came to school, I mean, you've been broadcasting your university at Tampa and doing some play-by-play yourself.
Absolutely.
You've been so what teams have you been covering over the course of the years you were there? And
Definitely. Yeah, 3+ years have had the blessing of calling 3 national championship teams, both indoor and beach volleyball, and as well as we're the reigning Division II national champions for baseball. Defeated Colorado Mesa and Cary, North Carolina. Seems like a while ago with everything that happened, and then of course the sudden delay and postponement of sports. Would definitely like to shout out all of the winter and the spring athletics that have been impacted, regardless of the level, for the individuals and the coaches, the players, and everybody, the fans, for their hard work and their perseverance during this time is definitely commendable. And I think in all positivity, we're getting there in terms of getting back to where we were prior to the shutdown, and it's exciting to see all the hard work paying off and the tremendous effort and teamwork by all these individuals.
oh yeah, I mean, I feel like in terms of the grand scale of things, and being going to a SUNY, you going to kind of a bigger university, you kind of see it throughout the big D1 schools that you see on ESPN, things like that. But for me, being from a little D3, SUNYAC school,
Yes,
they
sir.
were affected by it. The SUNYAC as a whole kind of went by, hey, there's no fall, there might not be any winter.
Right.
We got to regroup and visit this back once the new year hits. And for a lot of people, even last spring, that was the last semester. Last spring was the last time I was on campus, and you saw like a lot of people's last seasons were affected by that. But let's get right into it. You being, and whoever, if you're a Yankee fan watching this, this might not be,
If you're a Red Sox fan too, if you're any team right now going through the trust the process stage,
Right.
I think that the Philadelphia 76ers really invented that, and it applies to any sport anywhere because, hey, anything can be a transition, and hey, a lot of teams are going through it longer than others, but I mean, at the same time, it's like they're getting there. They're getting one step closer, and I think you're harping on something here, Nick.
and I feel like that's the biggest reason why you're on here. I mean, you truly are and have been a Tampa Bay Rays fan even before you went to school,
right,
down in Florida, and I knew that. So I guess to see the Rays get are one game now
Right.
away from their second World Series, and looks like they really do have a chance to win this year.
I agree.
It was a tough one against Philadelphia back in 08.
Jimmy Rollins, if we think back to Jimmy Rollins.
You kind of felt that it was the Cinderella. The Phillies were the better team that year. But right now, I'm seeing Tampa Bay as the best team, in my opinion, left in this playoff.
Oh, and Nick, I think having this conversation is spectacular because being the baseball mind that you are, you played growing up and you understand the game really well, and this is why we're having this outstanding podcast, because we're having these conversations for people that maybe don't know the process in terms of the analytics and logistics, in terms of, we could talk about the sports science of the shift for hours if we wanted to.
Right.
We could talk about the opener and recording 27 outs and manufacturing runs with a 9-player lineup, and how it really is reinventing the game of baseball. I mean, I think of James Harden and Steph Curry as changing the game of basketball with the sidestep three that Harden has, and with Steph Curry playing small ball with Draymond Green running center. We're seeing with the Rockets now with PJ Tucker, and that just shows the similarities across all sports in terms of adaptations and getting there. And I think with the Rays is pretty simple in one aspect, in terms of, no one on that team is making more money than the rest of the city. You know what I mean? And and that's a replica not anywhere in the world. You know what I mean? Look at English Premier League soccer and see some of the guys that are the GOATs there. You know what I mean? You look at it here and it's like, this is a team where they all respect what the other can help to the team. And I think of G-Man Choi having a first great inning defensively to make. That could have been a sloppy inning with some throwing errors early.
Right, in that game 5.
And that goes unseen, but then that same player being replaced by Mike Brasso, who, little do we know, becomes the legendary hero, in the reigning moments. So, I mean, I think it's just a testament to this team and their togetherness and their team chemistry. And the last thing I'll say on it is the job that everyone is doing there in terms of team ERA. I mean, some people don't know, hey, it's a starting pitcher, or is this an opener? I don't even know how many innings or outs this guy's going to accumulate. But you consider with everything happening right now, with a 60 some odd game season for some teams, and on unprecedented times, we could talk about how this season could have an asterisk on it for multiple reasons, in terms of player stats, team stats, all of that for that matter. But really just the job well done that they have building this team and this franchise.
And you really summed it up perfectly. I think that there's postseasons and there's teams that have multiple guys step up that aren't that big name. And you might say, all right, Tampa Bay doesn't really have many big names in their starting 9, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But for Kevin Cash to really just see what's in front of him, like, they are so smart. Like, this club, the Tampa Bay Rays, are so smart. They know, they have a plan, they have these numbers, and to be comfortable, and even yesterday, you had Yandy Diaz at first. You didn't start Choi. You had Yandy at first, but to be comfortable to say, hey, we're going with Brasso, like, and right. He works probably, and we said this before we got on, it might be one of the best postseason at bats that I've seen in recent memory. You're facing Chapman, you're down 0-2, you work the count to get it to 3-2, you foul off a tough fastball, a tough slider, fouls another 99 right back to the screen. He's going, I'm on it. Thinking, all right, maybe you go slider here. No, he got a fastball inside. He turned on it and was able to give the Rays a 2-1 lead. And I think if we want to delve into that opener, that staff, no one has the same role for Tampa Bay. Ryan Thompson opening, John Curtis opening sometimes. Right. And then last night, up 2-0, down 1. And this is the inning where, Tampa scored the 5 runs off that Altuve error. They went 7-8.
Right.
And Cash, it was great. It's great to see Cash's thought process, I guess, with, we don't want to show our number one, like our A relievers, 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
We want different looks. And what they did in game 2, going with Snell, Thompson, there was no same arm angle that the Houston Astros were seeing out of any pitcher at all during the series.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is so true, because there really isn't that comparison. We could be like, okay, he's the 1, the 2, the 3, and this is how we're going to go every game. Because there really isn't that. I mean, no matter how deep you look into it, and I will say the unsung heroes really of this team ERA are Mike Zunino and Michael Perez, and the job that they're doing, because there is an art of catching. We know how it is. There's umpires that call ball and strikes. There's not this. We have the box in terms of the high strike call, and what that is, game to game in terms of the consistency. We always ask, for the game to be consistent 1 through 9 in terms of the innings, and I think that's where the umpires deserve a lot of credit for keeping it similar in that sense for the teams. And with that, I think it's just a testament to, like we said, of the job they've done. Shout out to Joey Wendell. I think he's one of those guys, one of the hardest workers I've seen. And I think Kevin Kiermaier, Willie Adames, Brandon Lau, Nate Lowe, the list goes on, and the job that they do. And then not to mention, the front office really for bringing all this together and making it happen.
Right, and then you talk about pitching staff, and Zunino and Perez out of that 9-hole are contributing offensively as well. And then when you talk about offense, I mean, the legend of Randy Arozarena is growing, and we saw it against the Yanks. He homered in the first 3, right? And he continued to hit the ball game 1, another home run. He hasn't stopped hitting.
Oh, Nick, we can talk about Randy Arozarena. We got a quick break to go to here, but that is a really interesting topic to talk about, and really his rise to stardom, which has been so sudden for the Tampa Bay Rays. What a terrific number 3 hitter and defender he has become for this organization.
So we'll come back shortly, talk some more playoff baseball, maybe a little college football. We'll see what Conor has to say about Bama and Georgia, the primetime matchup. That will be Saturday night. Welcome back to On the Hot Seat. Conor Moore is still here with me, and as much Tampa Bay Rays and the Astros series, we could probably talk about that for hours and everything. I just wanted your opinion on it. We're seeing the NLCS, and we're seeing Atlanta. They took a 2-0 lead. Game 2 was pretty crazy. That Atlanta up 7-0. Dodgers finally started getting some hits with runners in scoring position. What are you seeing in this series? And I guess being part of the Rays fan base, as they are 1 game away from the World Series, the job's not finished. But what team do you think, or would you feel more comfortable in facing it? And where do the Rays have a better chance or the advantage between these two teams? Because these are the 2 NL powerhouses, as you would say.
Absolutely. But before I get into those 2 teams, I would like to take a moment to shout out Derek Jeter and Don Mattingly for the job they've done for the Miami Marlins. A team that coming in, I believe the said Braves said they were 0-0. They said we could not lose a game. I don't know if bottom feeder was referred to, but saying that this team, kind of wasn't legit. And what the Marlins said, and their team message is so good for anyone listening out there that maybe is the underdog, you know what I mean,
right,
and feels like they're intimidated. Rather, it was a team that believed in themselves. And hey, the Miami Marlins had the craziest season arguably out of anyone in terms of the St. Louis Cardinals were up there too in terms of just like a roller coaster atmosphere. And then their job there, they obviously fell to that said team, and now moving towards that matchup. I mean, shout out to both teams. I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm wondering, like, do we see them take that step, or
right,
was this like the 60 games?
Right.
Do we see them go
right,
back to like 72
right,
and 90?
Right.
Like,
you're right. I mean, I think it all comes down to guys like Sixto Sanchez. You know what I mean? The arms and Pablo Lopez and
Sandy Alcantara.
Absolutely.
They're a good front 3.
And what they do with the bullpen and manufacturing 27 outs is remarkably similar to the small ball teams out there. You're a Mets fan. Remember when the Kansas City Royals made? I mean, the Mets were that close to that Mets team was legitimate. That
yes,
was
in 2015,
that
absolutely.
was one of the. I mean, I'll say it happily. that was one of the best teams I've seen in quite some time. The starting pitching the Mets displayed was some of the best we've seen in the last decade, arguably. And there's no stretch in that at all. But what, like, it could be similar to the Royals, rather, right?
Right.
What have the Royals done since then? It's a process. You know what I mean? They had their 1 year. I think about the New York Giants. You know what I mean? They won 2 Super Bowls, snuck in with Eli Manning, and then they just found a way.
Right.
Same with Joe Flacco, finding a way. And that's why we talk about, obviously with all these teams and stuff like that and where they're at along the timeline. I think what's really interesting, getting back to your question about the Braves and the Dodgers, cannot undermine the importance of Mookie Betts. I read a stat on him a little while ago about, he's up there with some of the all-time greats and how many 3 home run games you've had. And to have a guy that I'm saying there's a chance he hits 3 home runs today. I can't say many guys across this planet that can. We always talk about how difficult it is baseball.
Right.
Teeing up and getting the barrel of the bat to some of the best off-speed pitchers and heaters in existence, and how difficult that is. The special ability that Mookie Betts has is fantastic, and he's a true class act and an exceptional player. On the other side of things, you get to the pitching. We have a really good matchup tonight. Kyle Wright, who went 6 scoreless in his first appearance in the playoffs, and we also have Jose Urias, who's a fine arm in of itself, and it's going to be, I think, probably a pitcher's duel. I know a lot of people are seeing a clash of the bats, but these 2 guys, when they toe the rubber, are really, really good. And then we talk about, the teamwork and the chemistry from the pitcher to the catcher and how important that is in calling a good game.
Right.
The catcher is such an important part of a baseball game because they're the ones agreeing to signs. You know what I mean? What if you're just throwing meatballs down the middle that are getting crushed for extra base hits? It doesn't matter how good you necessarily are if you're not in unison with your catcher and pitcher, and that's why, and the pitching coach too. You got to think top to bottom.
And I think Will Smith's done a really good job for the Dodgers for sure. And I'm wondering, and I said this, yesterday on the weekly podcast that came out yesterday. The Dodgers have to get a lead early. You're down 2-0.
I think that's fair. Absolutely.
And especially with Urias, if he's down 3-0, 4-0, this, I feel like, to Dave Roberts is an elimination game. You can't go down 3-0 to this Braves team.
And that's a good point.
So I feel like there's gonna be a short leash with him. So if you give him some runs early, if you let him go 5, if he can go 5 or 6 for you, that's gonna put less pressure on the bullpen. And I feel like we're not. I guess for yesterday, with Game 2, I feel as though people aren't making Kershaw's scratch start a big enough deal because that's a guy that can go 7.
It's true.
That's a guy that can go 7, 8. And then you're only, okay, how do we get those 6 outs?
Absolutely.
And Roberts can go, all right, do we go Trinan, Joe Kelly? Do we go back to Kenley Jansen, although he has been struggling? Gonsolin, did he? I don't think got through did he go through 5? Like he there's so much. The 6th and 7th inning, those 6 outs just to get to the back 6 are, I feel like, some of the hardest outs to. It's where you're gonna win or lose the game sometimes.
Right. And I mean, you talk about Kershaw, Cy Young pitcher for how many years? I mean, really.
He's brought back that stuff this year.
Right.
Even in the short season.
No matter who you root for, you've heard the name Clayton Kershaw and what he's been doing. I mean, you think about what Madison Bumgarner did, and think about what Bruce Bochy and the San Francisco. How about Pablo Kung Fu Sandoval?
He's on the Braves now.
And I'm sorry, but he's the best postseason hitter active
right
now.
In terms of on base.
It's been a while, but Pablo Sandoval, I think Ron Darling said it best. I think what he said about him is he says, this guy gets the barrel to it and you don't know where it's going. And as a defender, that's what you kind of fear because it's like this guy could hit him. I mean, I really like what the Toronto Blue Jays have with Kevin Biggio and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette because these guys are on the rise. This is a team that's not far off. Once that pitching staff connects, they're very close. But, I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Sr. and what he did with just he was the art of bad ball hitting. You know what I mean? A guy's like, hey, I located it in the dirt. He still hit it for a double. Right. And that's the guy with Pablo Sandoval who can make an impact like that. So I think, and we could also talk about the Houston Astros because with the surrounding effects, with everything that's been happening with them, give them some credit for being here in this position too. For there's only 2 representatives now from each
league,
from
right.
each league, and they got there. You know what I mean? I think they heard it. Like the media, they tell you how it is, and you know what they really did a job in their own right to get here and to kind of silence all of those other voices that were saying, hey, you know what, you guys are going to fall short, this and that, and they made it here, and you can't diminish anything that they've done because they're still in the series too. You know what I mean? Even though it's 3-0, it's not impossible for 4 games to be won by them, and believe me, the Tampa Bay Rays know that very well. And then same with the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers.
They know this series is
They
over,
know this.
obviously.
It's not over because these guys. This is professional baseball, and I believe it was the Cardinals. I think in recent years piled on like a double-digit inning, like early, and it just shows there's not a clock in baseball.
I think that's the best part about baseball.
You gotta record
You
outs.
got to get to 27.
I mean, what year? I mean, as a Met fan, do you remember that game? I believe it was against the Cardinals that went.
In 06?
I think that was one of those games that just is a testament to what we're saying here in terms of like
Bad memories.
Well, no, but you never know though in terms of
Absolutely
it's like.
not.
And then you have to be prepared, I think, is what we're ultimately getting at as an organization.
Right.
It's like, this could be 20 innings. You know what I mean? Do I have guys available, ready to go? If it's like, we've been here for 5-6 hours, we need you?
And it's a great point, especially that new extra inning rule obviously is in effect for the postseason.
Yes.
I don't know if you liked it. I didn't really.
It's
I
different.
understood it
It's
because there
different.
was so many games and so
Right.
many days.
Well, how about the rule in terms of it's not an earned run, but it's an RBI? You know what I mean?
Because the pitcher didn't put him on. It's an unearned run, but
Exactly.
but if you give it up, it's a loss.
Right.
So.
It's funny how that works.
But I feel, it's a really smart thing. It's like innings wise, we don't know. The fact that there's no off days in between, I understood it for the 3, the DS with 5, 7 games in a row.
Oh my goodness! And neutral sites with fans watching from Zoom and the although what's nice about I see they have similar to in the north side of Chicago for Wrigley, they have in San Diego those buildings where fans can kind of watch,
like they're peeking over from outside of the stadium.
Oh, totally. And I mean we were going to highlight it about 8:00 Eastern time, number 2 versus number 3, Alabama roll tide
Big
roll
game
against the Dogs of Georgia and how that's going to be impacted with all these fans that we're seeing across the country. They're amounting, and you're seeing, hey, maybe this isn't a neutral site game or a game that's kind of like spectatorless. Maybe there is a little bit of an impact.
This is probably game of the year so far on the schedule, probably the most highlighted game for college football.
I think you have to label it that because it's the first matchup between 2 top 4 teams, and everybody knows. Let's just think about the NCAA. They have the title game, and if you lose a couple games early on, you're settling for a bowl game. That's another one. March Madness is totally different. I think what we've seen with the University of Connecticut Huskies, where it's like Kemba Walker and Shabazz Napier, fresh off the Big East tournament, are coming in as
and they're hot
middle seeds, and they're beating the 1 seed. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. So getting to this game, I mean, it's gonna be a great game because how many pro players you're gonna see in this game between both lines, the defense, the backfields. And you got just exceptional coaching staffs too, and universities that have outstanding fan bases that really have taken such a pride of a culture and an identity. And I think it's really nice to see at the collegiate level.
Well, I guess what would as you've seen from both these teams so far, and my conference is Big Ten, so I haven't really watched much. Not as much college football as I would like, or as a follow. But what do you think the keys to the game for either team is to come out with a W?
Absolutely, we'll go three points to begin. And first, the line of scrimmage and controlling the atmosphere. This is a true home game for Alabama, and they need to use that to their advantage. The flip side of things is for Georgia. If they come out and make a statement early and get up a touchdown or two, then some Alabama fans might start to turn their head and get a little worried. And I think they felt that a little bit in Mississippi last week when they got down early, saw that Mississippi was good at every facet of the game. I think they realized that their offense was really good, but their defense played a heck of a game. They really brought it from the power rush to the secondary standing strong, despite Mac Jones finally getting it together in the second half. That first half was the slowest start for Alabama to begin, and I think dictating the line of scrimmage is going to be the key for both teams because these two teams know each other very well. This is a rich and historic rivalry that dates back generations, and I think right now both of these teams have ambitions of a championship. They're looking at this where a win here would pretty much secure them a date in the playoff if they can win out with that kind of victory. And then as for the flip side, if you don't play your A game and lose here, all of that is in question and speculation in terms of we might have to settle for a bowl game in a year of unknown and unpredictability. So I'll say with the line of scrimmage and the home field advantage for Alabama is going to be the two huge big keys for them. But if Georgia can neutralize that crowd and make it kind of like a neutral site game, and then it's like one of those high-scoring shootouts, I think Alabama in a low-scoring game at home, that favors them slightly because they have an electric defense, as does Georgia. So everyone is so quick to be like, hey, these receivers, these backs can light it up. But it's like these defenses have a lot of pro athletes in the making.
Absolutely.
And they're ready to bring it when that start time and kickoff emerges. But I think the last key to the game is how you finish. It's never about how you start, it's how you finish. This game could come down to a final kick. Let's be real. We saw it. I believe it was the Chargers-Seahawks game where in regulation – Chargers this close, it came down to a doink off the upright. And not to harp on some kicking misfortunes, but no matter who you are, there have been some big missed kicks in big games, and this could be one of those scenarios. It could be a blocked punt. It could be a costly turnover late that determines who wins this game. So I think the mental fortitude and the focus from both sides from start to finish, this could come down to a targeting penalty. We see in college where you lower your helmet,
they're pulling the flag
as
quick.
they should, and that's an accreditation to the NCAA and the Professional Football League too, and the NFL, XFL, and then all the sport leagues. Look at the NHL, the MLB, and the NBA, and then the MLS even with their growth. TBL is doing great things for the community. For basketball and all the other leagues that fall across regions and stuff like that. The player safety, at the end of the day, this is a game, and we want everyone to go home and be well and safe, and you wish them the best. You know what I mean? Sending prayers to Dak Prescott.
Absolutely.
Watching that game, seeing that ankle pop, you could not help but feel for him as an individual, regardless of who you were cheering for in the game, because you never root for an injury.
And I feel as if and we saw this, NBA, we saw Paul George, Gordon Hayward.
Yes.
I feel like as soon as it happened, the NFL, when they weren't playing, whoever already played or had yet to play, I feel like the NFL on social media came together. We're here for you.
They did.
We got you. This is, the setback for a major comeback, that type of mantra. And I'm going back to the college game, I'm thinking, would you say whoever wins the turnover margin could easily be the winner of the game?
I think statistics like that, what you're saying, is going to extremely determine who wins this game. Like, I think it's the stuff like that. How many penalties do you commit? I don't know.
Right.
If some teams have 10 penalties for 100-plus yards, that's not helping you win the game against a juggernaut and a perennial powerhouse that you're facing. I mean, this is not a team. Neither team right now is paying the other one to come visit them. These are two teams with motors and ideas of winning it all. And you look right now. Another game to watch out for is Clemson at Georgia Tech, because hey, Clemson has to go on the road, and you never know how you're going to fare on any given Saturday. And you know that Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets right now, are being motivated and revved up all week long, because this is the game that they circle on their schedules. And that's why I think why you guys have such a spectacular and fabulous show here is you bring light and you shed light to those underdog stories. We were talking about Randy Rosarina, a guy that Havana, Cuba. You know what I mean? Now he's batting third against Garrett Cole, the Yankee, the Bronx Bombers. stud ace, and it's like he's batting third. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like, where did they find this guy?
Right.
You know?
We love Mookie Betts and what he's doing because he's a staple of that Dodger team, and he's doing wonderful things for that organization. But it's not some big name guy that just inked a huge contract necessarily that's having those key contributions.
Absolutely. And maybe just to close out all of college football, would you, I guess you would say, because you're saying, how big of a game this is.
Yes.
If you lose, there's a chance you're not in the top four, possibly. Right. You think if either team does lose, if they do, let's say this is the one loss on the year for Bama or Georgia, if they win out, would you say there's still a pretty high probability that they are a top 4 team?
I think it's justifiable for them to get a case in that playoff. However, you do need to consider the other teams. Because a lot of these teams in a year with unprecedented times, an undefeated team with some signature wins that are by a significant margin have also need to be considered. You know what I mean? I always think about in March Madness, Gonzaga, you know what I mean? Their body of work and what they do and why they deserve a 1 seed time and time again. Why the Wichita States, get a lot of credit. Why Marquette was big with Buzz Williams and Wojo, and what they've done across the timeline. And then, I remember George Mason, people tend to forget George Mason team. I don't know how many guys ended up playing professionally after that, but that was a team, Larinaga, and what he was able to do. It's just a real promising sign for anyone out there who's maybe doubting their potential and maybe wondering, is this really for me? Because sometimes it just takes as much as telling someone, you know what, I believe in you and I think you can make this happen. And then you'd be surprised in terms of how good some players are. And then you read the stories and it's a feel-good moment because you're like, wow, this guy really took off and really made a name for himself or herself too. I think we saw with what Jeannie did, the first female owner to win an NBA championship for the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that's commendable. I think it's fantastic. Just terms of right now with a lot of hardships, a lot of struggles across the country and the globe, just to have equality is an important thing right now, I think, regardless of any ideologies, just to be like, you know what, I see equal with someone, and I think that needs to be said because at the end of the day, you know what I mean, regardless of who you are, you're a human being, and it's important for everyone to understand and realize that, and then not to really, you can spread happiness, positivity, or you can spread animosity and sadness. One of those,
the other.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's to find the light and to be kind, and especially in times like this, but really any time, you know what I mean. Even when you are at your lows or when you're at your highs, good, bad, the ugly, you know what I mean. To always be considerate of others, and I think right now what we're seeing with a lot of these sport teams, both professionally, collegiately, scholastically, the list goes on in terms of community work and a purpose. You know what I mean? We're not doing this just to see a scoreboard and take a picture and then, go on from there. It's like, no, we're doing this to have a substantial impact for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. And just to, finish this up, we didn't know, like we said, we didn't know when any of this was coming back. And,
right.
and as you gave the credit to, it felt so good. And for all these sports to come back and even to have the podcast like this after, doing it for a month now, being able to cover all these leagues at the same time,
right.
Having NBA, MLB, and the NFL going all on the same time was incredible. Having something to watch every night. And these professional athletes know as big as it's as big of, the challenge and being able to go to work.
Yes.
It was such a comforting feeling for viewers and fans like us to be able to turn on our screens again.
Totally.
And watch them play at the highest level.
Absolutely. And that's a shout out to all the players who really did end up playing and follow through with it, but also shout out some of the players that did opt out in terms of, safety measures. I know some players were like, hey, I have some family members, some friends with
guys like Buster Posey.
Yeah,
with his
some
kids
health conditions. And you know what? Good for them for, prioritizing what's important to them necessarily, you know what I mean? Because some players did it, you know what I mean? I look at the NHL, I look at the NBA, the MLB, what they're doing, and the NFL and the NCAA in terms of regulating it and the safety precautions, the measures being handled the right way.
Right, and that was the NHL and NBA the bubble was successful.
Right.
No positive cases. They got it done in the time frame that they wanted to.
Totally. They did what they had to do, and I just wanted to thank you guys again for the great work you're doing here.
So happy to have you on, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a spectacular show that Nick Derbabian and Christian Cabrera are producing for you guys. It's nothing short of spectacular, and thanks so much for having me as a feature, fellas. It's been a great time.
It was a pleasure to have you. Conor Moore on the hot seat with myself, Nick Derbabian. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for our weekly episode of the Take Sports Podcast. Be good, guys, all right?